Welcome to another episode of the Drew Aversa Show. I am here with Joe Diliberto from Sandler Sales Training, also my first executive coach, sales coach extraordinaire. Joe, how are you doing today?
Hey, Drew. Hey, I'm doing great. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm looking forward to this.
I am too. And one of the first things you taught me, Joe, is to talk about time and commitments in meetings. So this podcast is going to take roughly around a half hour. It might go a little bit longer if we have some good content. Is that okay with you?
That's a good upfront contract, Drew. And yes, that's good with me. Thanks for checking in on that.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. So I would just love to hear your background. I think more for the audience, but you have traveled all over the world. We're kindred spirits in that sense, through Asia and different business opportunities that you've been a part of, as well as sales. You really are a sales master. So how did you find yourself in sales a few years ago or some moons ago? But how did you find yourself in sales, Joe? And then what made you want to stay in sales? Because it's a grueling occupation for a lot of people.
Yeah. So, my background really started out in the corporate world and where I had a chance to kind of move through the ranks of business, both in the areas of sales and marketing and business development and strategic planning. And I really was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to have assignments around the world, as you said. So I had a chance to live in Europe for a few years. Actually, ended up meeting my wife there, future to be wife, and also lived in Asia for a few years, and also had the opportunity out of the U.S. to work in the Latin American region of that company. And so we had a chance to travel throughout really all of the countries in South America and Central America. So a lot of international work, but I've also had the opportunity, Drew, to work with startup companies where really you have a chance to understand you don't have an army of people behind you and you got to wear a lot of hats. And so what I'm doing now with Sandler Training is it's like my own business, even though I'm part of a larger company. I've been doing this for about 15 years, and what I find really cool about it is I'm able to take a lot of that stuff from my background, the corporate stuff, startup stuff, running my own business, and so I really enjoy bringing that to life with the clients that I work with.
That's great, Joe. And you were with Fortune companies before, right?
Yeah.
In the startup world. So for people, because San Francisco Bay Area is a very dynamic place where we're both from, people are coming from Fortune companies into startup world or going from a startup world into more of a traditional,
hmm
larger company. What are the differences in sales strategies between a startup and a more established company?
There are a lot of kind of basic things that both companies share. As a matter of fact, Sandler Training, our clients can be on the large end. I mean, clients like Oracle and Salesforce are our bigger clients, divisions of Cisco and those big guys. But we mostly work with small to medium-sized companies where we have a lot of touch points. And so what we learn is that there are a lot of these having kind of a framework and a process and a methodology that can be applied to really all kinds of businesses is important. It's important that we understand the differences in our industry or our segment. Are we selling a product or a service? Is it a consultative sale or a transactional sale? Once you understand your business, your desired client portfolio, then you kind of take the process and the methodology and you apply it to those specific things.
What are the key nuggets of being an effective salesperson, Joe?
Good question. It's funny. I think about the things that I did prior to learning a lot of this stuff, and I was able to get to sort of an executive level vice president. I was running a $600 million business. I had over 100 people on my sales team. But when I look back, Drew, I found that in a way, I mean, we all have good intentions, right? I was winging it though, to a certain extent. And if somebody said to me, Joe, tell me the things specifically that you are doing really well and the things that you think you need to work on, to be honest, I'd have trouble sorting those two things out. I would just kind of say, I don't know. I'm just giving it my best shot. A lot of them I'm just learning along the way. But now I think the nugget here is, do you have a process, a methodology that's repeatable, that after any sort of sales call, you can step back and say, wow, if I had the opportunity to do that over again, is there anything I would have done differently? And if you know what the process is, it's real easy to pinpoint that. So that's part of it, is to have a methodology or a process. In terms of a nugget, one basic thing, I know this sounds simple, but it's understanding the definition of selling. I mean, a lot of us have this image that what we're supposed to do is somehow, some way, convince somebody to buy from us, right? Like, here's why you should buy from us. I can help you do this better, or, make more money or be more efficient. But really, the definition of selling, in my mind, is simply to help people make the best decision for them. And more importantly, it's understanding that a sales process is made up of a lot of little micro decisions. And if we don't understand that, then not only do we lose control of the process, but we make it real uncomfortable for both parties. So that's probably one of the bigger nuggets, is understanding what is it you're trying to do in the sales process.
That's a great nugget, Joe. And that was something that you helped me a lot with when I was new to sales. Leaving the fire service, entering a director level role in professional services sales, and big goals, right? When we were working together, I was working also with the board of directors and CEO, and they had some lofty goals that we hit. We did a great strategy working together on that. And one of the key things I remember, as you told me, it's like football. You have to keep moving the ball down the field.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people in sales, they want to know when are you winning? When are you closing? All these very aggressive sales types, right? And it's like a yes or no, black or white thing. And unfortunately, that doesn't work out so well from a standpoint of building a good culture, a good client experience where the client doesn't feel like you're a shark out to get them in the sea.
Mm-hmm.
It's really moving the ball strategically down the field and knowing what your desired outcome looks like for you and for your client. I think those are some of the things that you really helped shape my mind with, is how I looked at the sales process was that slow, progressive approach to the mutually desired outcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, you said a couple of really important things there. And I also want to emphasize, really, to the audience, working with people like you, Drew, who are really good at what you do. I kind of view that like working with a high level athlete, that you're not trying to change their, here's how to catch the ball, how to throw the ball. It's little things that can make a big difference. And that, when I work with professionals and people that are really on their game, wow, a couple tweaks can be a big deal. So that's important to note for all of us, is having this desire to continually get better, continuously improve, and learn. I always say, Drew, and I always ask people to finish the sentence. When you're on a sales call, you either win or you, and of course I hear the word lose. And the answer is no, it's either win or you learn. And if that's your mantra, win or learn, you kind of welcome the losses, because those are clearly opportunities to learn. And that's our job, is to accelerate the learning process.
I love that, Joe. And one of the great things of having an executive sales coach, if you're new in sales or you've been doing it for a while and you're off on your numbers, is that communication of what you and I did, weekly check-ins. Hey, here are some of the situations. Here are what the conversations are looking like. This is what they're sounding like. Because you can also help somebody pivot and shift into the right direction where you do get the win, in a sense. And being good in sales, it's not just about you. It really is about the client. If you have massive value, you have a great product, you have a great service, at the end of the day, the client's happy because they're getting a new product. Or even, my time at Starbucks, somebody gets a licensed store, they get a brand new store. It's amazing, right? Or in the
Mm-hmm.
Contractors Association, they get help with grievances and labor union challenges. They're relieved. So I think one of the key things that I had to learn too, being new to sales, was at first it can be stressful because you're worrying about these quotas, or you're worrying about all these different things. But then it's thinking about the value, like what is the value of the product or the service? And then once you conceptualize that and you really believe in it, then I think sales starts to become fun. What do you think about that, Joe?
Oh yeah, I mean, the key word you just used was believe. I mean, I think selling is a battle of beliefs. People are buying our beliefs, and if you truly believe that you can help somebody, that you can bring value, then you find yourself pulling the chair, not literally, but imagine that you're pulling the chair to their side of the table, and you're looking at their business together, looking at their challenges, their problems, what's keeping them to get to certain places. And now, wow, you're truly adding value. And it kind of gives me, I have to share this little thing that I have in my head. Like whenever I meet young and new salespeople, I always ask them, what made you get into sales? And the answer I usually hear is to make more money, right? And I'm like, that's a good answer, because every sales manager wants a money hungry salesperson. But I got to share with you, that was my mantra. And when I started this Sandler business 15 years ago, and I realized it wasn't working for me. And so I changed it after a couple of years. And when I changed it, it was almost like a light switch. And I'll share it with you. And notice the double meaning here. It's help people make money. So on one hand, it's help people make money, and then it's help people, and you're going to make money in the process. So help people, it starts with helping people. So that's kind of the foundation of what you just said. Is it's exciting when you truly take your sales hat off, put your doctor hat on, and figure out, is there a problem here that I can help somebody with?
And you said something too. I think what it sums up is an exchange of value, where in life we have to make money to live, right? I mean, you can't get free food all the time. You can't get free, wine if you like wine, or a house. Nobody's giving you a house, at least in the Bay Area. So you have to make money in order to survive, a basic level of survival, and then one day hopefully retire and have peace in retirement. So during that process, whatever you're getting behind, can you get behind something that you stand for? And then when you're working with somebody, there's that exchange of your time, the value of your product or service, and then that other person's time, the need for your product or service, and then hopefully a mutually beneficial exchange where there's massive value and they feel fine paying for the value. Is that kind of how I'm hearing
Yeah, I
things?
definitely think that's part of it. And and viewing it like we're both on a level playing field. Like a lot of times a salesperson is in a way looking up to the buyer saying, please buy from me. And the buyer is looking down at the salesperson like, I don't respect salespeople. But when we start speaking to them on this level playing field and starts using words like, hey, this is a really good opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about each other, to figure out if this is a good fit for each of us. And it's possible that one of us might determine it's not the right time or the right fit. And the more we start recognizing this is not about us trying to convince them, it's about each of us figuring out together if this is going to be a good fit. So it's part of, I think, aligned to what you said there.
Well, and a lot of it is the mindset too, right? Where you have that mindset that this is a good thing for both of us, and that it's not, you're not one up or one down from that person. And what was that phrase you always used to say in Sandler, Joe? It was, you're independently wealthy. Act like you're independently wealthy and you don't need their
Yeah,
money.
I love that phrase, because it implies that I I don't need to work anymore. The only reason I work is I love what I'm doing. And wouldn't that be nice if we were independently wealthy and didn't need the money? Because you would be able to now take your sales hat off and basically have an amazing discussion to figure out together if you can help people. There's no scarcity mentality. There's no being desperate. There's no pushing hard. It's a matter of, let's figure this out. Now, you really do, Drew, we can't overlook the fact that you do have to have a process and a methodology to do that surgery, so to speak, to really figure out, because really when you boil down sales, and I know we've talked about this, but for the audience, I mean, there are really three things have to occur. Number one is there has to be a problem that needs to be solved. And that problem has to be at some level, of complexity important enough to solve it now. Secondly, is somebody's got to be willing to spend some money to fix that problem. And third, I better be talking to the person that can make those kind of decisions. So those are kind of the key guiding principles in selling are those three things. And again, the methodology kind of embraces that. And of course, there's a lot more that holds that together. But those are the core elements that have to occur in any sales process.
I love it, Joe. And also, you mentioned during Sandler, there's the Sandler pyramid. Let's talk about
Oh
that.
man, I love it. It's funny. As I said earlier, I've been doing this for about 15 years, and so my job is to help people, get better and improve and of course be more effective. But then you want like the management team or the manager to have the tools to be able to manage their team and coach and train their teams effectively. And ultimately you want individuals to be able to self-coach. So this triangle that you just talked about is the framework for all three of those categories. And let me take you through them real quickly. So on one corner of the triangle, the word we use is really behaviors and activities. And so what we really think about in that corner of the triangle is a quality thing and a quantity thing. And it really boils down to, am I as a salesperson doing enough of the right behaviors or activities on a regular basis to get in front of new opportunities? That's an important part that most salespeople, to be honest with you, Drew, don't do enough stuff. And if they are, they're not doing the right stuff. Maybe they're not getting to a high enough level in the organization, or maybe they're a little bit afraid to call on a larger opportunity because they don't know if they've earned it yet. So that's one corner of the triangle, is are you getting enough at bats, right? The second corner of the triangle is, all right, it's hard enough to get these freaking meetings. How do I make sure that I maximize every conversation or interview or discovery call so that I'm really good at qualifying or disqualifying effectively, or showing why my product or service is different, or knowing when and how to talk about price, and how do I add value. That's the ability to have sales skills and techniques, and that's where the Sandler selling system fits right in there. The third corner of this triangle, it's the most important of the three, Drew, and the label we put on it is our attitude and our personal identity. And really what that's saying, and this is really important, is all of us have what we call a self-image. Like if I was on a sales team with 10 people and somebody said to me, who's the best sales guy on your team? I might look around the room and say, well, it's not me. It's probably Frank over there. But by the way, I'm better than those four guys over there, right? So in other words, I have a self-image. Well, here's what the psychology says. It's very difficult to outperform how we see ourselves. So that is a really critical element in terms of your ability to sell effectively, your ability to have confidence, your ability to talk about the beliefs that you are, and the things that make up that corner of the triangle are things like, how do you see yourself as a person? Mind, body, and spirit. How do you see your company? Do you truly believe in what you're selling? And how do you see the opportunities in your marketplace? Are you a scarcity person or an abundant person? So that triangle is a framework for effective debriefing, effective coaching, effective training to identify what's the right end of the triangle that we need to work on.
Out of those three, which one do people have the hardest time with?
Well, the first thing is that they don't recognize that one on that attitude one. So all they're thinking about is, how do I get in front of enough people and how do I sell more effectively? But of those two, it's usually that people are not doing enough of the right stuff, Drew. And therefore that top corner of the triangle starts messing with us. Like if somebody said, well, Joe, why aren't you going after really large opportunities? I might say, well, I'm not sure if I earn the right to do that. So that mental thing gets in the way of the behaviors. So that behavior thing is what we're usually lacking, and it's because of our sort of self-image. They all sort of have interplays there.
So I'm going to ask you this, Joe. Here's a question that through the years I've talked with friends in sales. Now, companies change sales goals all the freaking time, man. You're plugging along, you're doing extremely well, and then next thing, there's a new product that's rolled out. You're halfway through the sales cycle with your customer that's about ready to buy the product that you were told to go sell. And
Mm-hmm.
then now there's like this pivot where there's excitement inside the organization by the marketing team and by the product people, maybe the CEOs. It's a pet project for the CEO. And then they want you to pivot or they want you to do something else. So sales can also be very challenging because your bonuses are tied to that as a sales professional. Your livelihood is tied to that. If you don't hit quota, you're gone or potentially talked to about being gone. So different things are constantly changing in sales organizations. which can be very frustrating and can be very difficult for people to keep that mindset piece that you were just talking about,
Hmm.
where you want to keep yourself positive, you want to keep yourself strong. Externally, you're doing great with your clients, and then internally within the organization, there's a constant chaos or just a dysrhythm that makes it very difficult for salespeople to perform. I've heard this through numerous industries, talking to people across the board in sales. So, what is your advice? Is that a management issue? Is that a cultural issue? What is that? Because a salesperson who's doing really well, the clients love them, and then now they've got all this internal hoopla going on. What's your advice on that, Joe? For
Wow.
top
So that,
level and
yeah,
for the salesperson.
boy, that's a big one, and you really touched on a lot of important issues just with that scenario you laid out. I'm going to have to start with saying this is a big picture business model and cultural issue. I mean, I think, and I actually see this problem. It's not really ultimately the salesperson's problem. They're on the other end of it that have to figure out how to execute this strategy that's not really a sound one or a good one. If I was working with that company, Drew, what I would be doing is sitting down with the CEO and the management team to truly understand where are they taking their business. It's kind of like that theory that says structure follows strategy. So before we start messing with the sales organization and the structure and their compensation plan, we better have a strategy that's really in place, it's sound, it's credible, it's been thought through. And once we have that nailed, now we can structure the sales organization and the direction and the compensation plan and then the right metrics in place. So what you described starts with really top of the organization, and they need help. And if you get all the way down to the salesperson, here's where we start having problems. One of the worst things you can do to a salesperson is change the compensation plan in the middle of the year. Start messing with people's wallets in the middle of the year, changing their targets, their quotas, and then changing their paybacks. That's disaster. That's when you start getting people where their motivation starts to decline. They stop being engaged. They start looking at other companies. So it's almost like saying this. You think about, are we talking about a problem or are we talking about a symptom? And I think that what you started with was the symptom, and that is, I'm sorry, what was the problem with these salespeople getting all this mixed direction? But we got to go all the way back to figure out what's really causing that problem. And that's where we're getting to culture and management.
Great points, Joe. And let's talk about stretch goals, because every sales organization typically has a goal, and then
Yeah.
some have a stretch goal, which oftentimes people may or may not meet. What are your thoughts on stretch goals, the purpose behind them, and the reality of achieving them?
The first thing that comes to my mind, it's a good question, is that whole thought process of the why has to be bigger than the what. Here's what I mean by that. If we say to anybody, whether it's a salesperson or anybody, hey, Drew, here's what I want you to do. I need you to deliver this kind of goal, double our sales this year. The first question you're going to ask, either out loud or to yourself, is, why do I need to do that? And if that answer to that question, like why do we need to double our business, is smaller than what you just asked me to do, then it's not going to happen. So we have to be on the same page to determine, why does it make sense to grow our business, to have these stretch goals. And once I understand, if I was the salesperson, once I truly understood the why, like maybe part of the why is it gives us a chance to enter new markets, or it gives us a chance to sell new products and services. And that's going to give us the ability to hire more people, which now gives us the ability to have a larger organization that we're able to leverage that into maybe entering new markets. And Joe, the person I'm talking to, you now have new career opportunities. And by the way, along the way, we're going to reward you with, whether it's profit sharing or bonuses or compensation plans, that now we're getting to now some real reasons to grow this business. Now, the last thing, Drew, on that is, you don't just throw numbers at people. hey, you know what? You need to double your business, or you need to, here's the stretch goal. There better be a plan. There better be a path. Look, here are the steps. Here's our goal for the year. Here's why we want to get there. Now let's break that into pieces. And it all comes all the way down to, here's what you need to do today, Joe, to make that happen. If I'm clear on that, we're on our way.
Great points again, sales master. And next question here.
Uh-oh,
We see
this one
this
sounds serious, Drew.
all the time on headlines, different blog posts. Is cold calling dead? We have LinkedIn, we have social media, we have all these different things. Is cold calling dead, Joe?
You know, the short answer is no. Now, is it harder to be effective at cold calling? Yes. So I'm a really big believer in having a multifaceted business development plan that cold calling is one component of. If all you are relying on is cold calling, you're going to either burn out too soon or get real frustrated because it's not going to be easy. So the question is, well, what are the kinds of things that we can do where cold calling is a part of? So I kind of think of cold calling as one behavior or activity, and all the other ones are to make the calls warmer. So if I went to a networking event and I met somebody at that event and I noticed that we have a lot of things in common, like maybe we don't compete, but we're targeting the same customer. Well, now there's a reason to meet with them. And the more we work with each other, we might be able to help each other by opening doors. And so instead of relying on just cold calling, how do we add more elements? But let's go back to cold calling. I think the challenge here, we know we're going to get voicemails. We know we're going to get gatekeepers. We know we're not going to get callbacks. So how do we get better at cold calling? So I'll give you an example. Usually what happens is it's pretty clear when you get a cold call, and I hate getting them, by the way. It's like, oh man, here's a freaking salesperson. And sometimes I just hang up on them. I don't know if you do, but I do. But if somebody said this to me,
Was that a question, Joe? Or
so if somebody cold called me and said this to me, hey Joe, man, listen, I probably caught you right in the middle of something. Hey, do you mind if I just take 1 minute to tell you who I am, why I'm reaching out to you, maybe provide a little bit of context so that you can decide if you would like to have a brief conversation or not. So now I'm thinking, well, that was different. That was interesting. And I'm likely to give you the green light, like, sure, who are you and why are you calling me? As a matter of fact, Drew, um, if people do what I just said, I have found the percentage of cold call recipients that say sure to that is above 85%. Now, of course, you got to figure out, what do I do once they gave me the green light to take a minute of their time? Now, that's where I would say you better know the problems you solve. And so I might say to you, Drew, I did some research on your company. And I noticed that you guys are going through a consolidation process. And one of the things, I don't know about your business, Drew, but a lot of times I hear that, wow, consolidating teams is harder than we thought it would be. It's really difficult to take two sales cultures and put them together. And those are examples of a company that I work with, where we really sit down and say, is there a way we can give them a common language? But again, Drew, I don't know if that's something you're seeing over there. So what I just did out of the role play, Drew, is I laid out a guess of a problem that I think they have, laid it out in a third party story, and ended it with a question so that you can say to me, you know what? That's something that we're starting to see here. How do you work with companies like me? So the point I'm making, Drew, is calling difficult? Yes. Should we have a strategy? Maybe we have to, if we get a voicemail, maybe we leave a voicemail that leads to an email, and that email is designed to follow up with a phone call. So when I work with my clients, we figure out what's the best cadence. What do those voicemails sound like? What's the gatekeeper sound like? All of those things are part of being better at cold calling.
And you hit on some great things, Joe. I think for sales managers, taking the time to coach your people through cold calling? Because if you're in the sales manager role and you've been there for 2 to 5 years, it comes naturally. But for most people, having an awkward conversation, most people don't like awkward conversations. That's why networking events can be very stressful for a lot of
Hmm.
people if they're
Yeah.
not extroverts and they're not able to make small talk quickly. So then here they are. Maybe your company is the only job that they could get at the time,
Hmm.
and the job is cold calling, and they have to give it a shot. So to role play and to have these scenarios to walk people through the initial gaining trust, building that rapport quickly on the phone, which is very difficult to do because
Yeah.
body language is, over 80% of how we communicate, and you can't see that on the phone.
Hmm. You're right.
So you just have the thing you taught me about, tone.
Yeah.
So if your tone is too aggressive, too soft, too meek, too loud, what your tone is can also be very off-putting for people on the phone. So it's very difficult for that initial 5 seconds to build that rapport, that trust, which sales, you have to have trust and credibility. And then after that piece of what are you solving, do you know enough about who this person is, maybe some demographic information on them, what their company is, and whatnot. But having that mentoring program within the sales organization, Joe, I think is so key. Having to do cold calls and not being trained on how to do cold calls can be extremely stressful. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and I think you're hitting on another key point, Drew, and that is management's role to help a salesperson be successful. So I view a manager's role with four specific different hats they have to wear. And then let me just run through them fast. There's a training hat, a coaching hat, a supervising hat, and a mentoring hat. Now, a lot of people don't get the difference between training and coaching. Here's the difference. Training is when you give people something new, a new tool, a new process, a new methodology. And you'll get people that are shaking their heads. Oh, I like that new tool. I got it. So that's training. Coaching is, all right, I want to now watch you apply or use that tool. So now I'm in coaching mode. And role playing, as you just mentioned a minute ago, is a key element. Whether you shadow a rep, literally go with them on a sales call, or sit next to them and listen to their calls, or role play, those are ways that are how we can coach our individuals more effectively. That third element, which is supervising, is look, man, we're all in this to deliver results. And so, are we tracking the right metrics? Are we holding people accountable to deliver the results that are required? And that fourth mentoring thing is, you use that word as well, is do we really understand our team? What motivates them? What inspires them? Or what they see in terms of their career path? And all those things come into the mentoring category. But yeah, that coaching piece is so important, role playing and the things that you mentioned.
What do you think is the most important thing that we have not talked about yet, Joe, that you want to leave the listeners with from all your years of sales, whether it's multicultural, different things going on in sales, the market right now? What's at the top of your mind?
That's a good question. Gosh, I feel like I need to think about that a lot longer. But the first thing that comes to my head is, and we've heard this, and that is, do you really have some meaning and purpose of what you're doing? Because that's where your passion and belief is going to come. I just said, literally, Drew, 2 days ago, in the morning, I said to my wife, it's a good thing I like what I do because I'm working too hard. But the good news is I love what I do, right? So you have to love what you do. And we learn a lot from people around us. I mean, we've all been hearing the horrible situation with Kobe Bryant and his daughter. And the good news about that, and I know it's hard to find it, is think about the people he's impacting now. I mean, he was already impacting so many people, and now he's impacting more people. Just this morning, before coming to you, I did a half-day workshop, Drew, and I gave them a homework assignment. Shared the link with them of the tribute to Kobe Bryant in his own words that was used in the Lakers' first home game after the accident. And I asked them to listen to this 5-minute YouTube and find one thing that they can apply to their lives. And it was a really interesting conversation we had this morning. But there were about 30 people in the room, and everybody had different perspectives. But the key element here is this: all of us have our own box, Drew. They're all different boxes. Yours isn't better or worse than mine. The question is, what are you doing with your box? And as you said, sales is hard. And if you're not enjoying the journey, then it's probably not for you. So in figuring out a way to have fun, enjoy the journey, help people make money, I guess is my number one message.
Awesome, Joe. Thank you so much, and enjoy always having you around in my life as a mentor, as a coach, as a trainer, as somebody who I respect immensely. And I hope those who are listening, if you are curious on how to grow your business, how to grow your sales, reach out to Joe, attend. You have a free boot camp, right? That you can go to and check you
Uh,
out and learn a little bit more.
I do have the ability to have people, if they want to jump into one of my workshops. I do a couple things, Drew, a lot of things, but one is I do a weekly workshop, 2-hour workshop every week. And gosh, people come to that for a while. People that are listening are welcome to come there as my guest. I also do boot camps where people have the opportunity to get a much deeper dive, and I do a lot of in-house corporate work as well. But yeah, if there was a way that people can reach out, I'd be happy to discuss this with them.
And if you haven't gone to one of those sales trainings, I recommend Joe highly. So check it out. I've sent numerous people to you through the years, and they have had nothing but great things to say. So Joe is the man, the myth, the legend of sales training in the Bay Area.
Hey,
Thank you,
Drew, this
Joe.
was fun. I really appreciate you inviting me to have this podcast. So thank you.
You're welcome. Great having you, Joe.